Have you ever felt it? That undeniable, magnetic pull toward another person. It's a force that seems to operate outside the bounds of logic or reason. It can feel like a bolt of lightning on a clear day, a sudden sense of homecoming with a complete stranger. In those moments, the world narrows, and every part of your being seems to hum with a single resonant frequency telling you, this is it. This is the one. But here is the paradox that so many of us live with, often in silence. Why does that lightning so often strike in the most dangerous places? Why do we feel that profound sense of homecoming with the very people who, in the end, make us feel the most lost? You might have a friend who always falls for the emotionally unavailable artist, or perhaps you yourself keep finding variations of the same partner. The charming narcissist, the wounded soul you feel compelled to fix, the person who offers immense passion but zero security. You escape one situation only to find yourself, months or years later, staring at a different face that evokes the exact same feeling of impossible longing and inevitable pain. Your friends might call it your type. You might call it bad luck, or even a self-destructive streak. But from a depth psychology perspective, this isn't a flaw, it's a message. It is not bad luck, and it is most certainly not a sign that you are broken. It is a symptom of a much older story running in the background of your life, a story held within the unconscious mind. This pattern is the result of a profound internal conflict, a kind of psychic civil war being waged just beneath the surface of your awareness. On one side, you have the conscious, adult you, the part that makes vision boards, sets goals, and deeply yearns for a stable, loving, and nurturing partnership. This is the part of you that wants to thrive. But on the other side, there is a much older, more powerful force, the part of your psyche wired for survival, the part that learned what love felt like long before you had words for it. And its definition of love might be very different. It might be chaos, unpredictability, or the desperate ache of striving for affection that is never quite given. That recurring pattern of attraction, the one that leads to heartbreak, isn't a life sentence. It is a map drawn by your own history, pointing directly to the parts of you that are waiting to be understood, to be healed. Today, we are going to become cartographers of our own inner worlds. We aren't here to condemn our desires, but to decode them. We are going to uncover why your heart seems to choose heartbreak, and in doing so, discover how you can finally, gently, teach it to choose peace. So, who are these two powerful forces engaged in this internal struggle for the steering wheel of your heart? To truly understand our patterns, we must first meet the architects of our desires. They are two distinct forms of intelligence, two different operating systems running on the same hardware, and they rarely want the same thing. First, let us acknowledge the older, more dominant force. We can call it the survival self. This isn't the you that thinks in words or worries about the future. This is the ancient, reptilian, and limbic part of your brain, the part that has been fine-tuned by hundreds of thousands of years of evolution with one singular, non-negotiable goal: keep the organism alive. It doesn't care about your partner's communication style, their career ambitions, or whether they share your love for classic literature. It cares if their presence, for reasons you can't articulate, feels safe or dangerous based on a deep, ancient filing system. Its language is not logic. It's the language of neurochemicals, dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline. This is the source of that raw, undeniable chemistry. It's not a sign of soulmate potential. It's a somatic resonance, your body's primitive recognition system firing on all cylinders. Then there is the other architect, the narrative self. This is the you that you know. The you that journals, goes to therapy, makes plans, and talks to your friends about what you're looking for in a partner. It's the part of you that constructs a story of your life, woven with language, values, and ideals. It operates in the newest part of the brain, the neocortex. It yearns for what modern psychology calls a secure attachment, a relationship built on predictability, trust, mutual growth, and the quiet comfort of being truly seen and accepted for who you are. It's the voice that wisely says, maybe I should avoid people who are emotionally volatile. Herein lies the central conflict of our love lives. As trauma expert Gabor Mate might suggest, our deepest wounds often create our strongest attractions. The survival self, programmed in the intense, nonverbal world of our childhood, screams its attractions from the rooftops. It seeks what is familiar, even if that familiarity is pain, because to the primitive brain, the familiar is always safer than the unknown. Meanwhile, the narrative self whispers its desires for health and stability. And for most of our lives, we have been conditioned to respond to the alarm bell, not the quiet suggestion. This is why you can have a list of all the green flags you want, but walk into a room and feel an irresistible pull towards someone who ticks none of them. Your narrative self is trying to read a map, while your survival self has just grabbed the wheel, convinced it's swerving to avoid a threat, or in some cases, driving straight toward one, because the familiar chaos of that crash feels, terrifyingly, like home. So, let's go deeper into the architecture of this attraction. Why does your survival self activate for one person and not another? What is the hidden blueprint that governs this powerful, often illogical chemistry? The answer lies in one of the most profound concepts in depth psychology, something that helps us understand the ghost in our own machine. It's a concept known as the Imago, the Latin word for image. Popularized by relationship therapists Harville Hendricks and Helen Lockelly Hunt, the Imago is essentially a subconscious, composite sketch of the positive and negative traits of our primary caregivers. From the moment we are born, our infant brain, long before it has language, begins to form a picture of the world and of love itself. This picture is built from thousands of micro-experiences: the way a parent held us, the tone of their voice when they were stressed, the feeling of their presence, and crucially, the feeling of their absence. This psychic photograph becomes the template for love we carry, often unknowingly, for the rest of our lives. Let's make this real with a story. Consider a woman we'll call Sarah. Consciously, Sarah's narrative self wants a partner who is stable, present, and emotionally consistent. Yet, she finds herself in a recurring pattern, magnetically drawn to men who are brilliant and charismatic, but fundamentally unavailable. On paper, it makes no sense. But if we look at her Imago, the pattern becomes clear. Her father, a man she adored, was a whirlwind of presence and absence. When he was there, her world was bright, full of laughter and validation. But he was often gone, absorbed in his work, leaving an emotional void. For the young Sarah, love became encoded not as a steady, reliable presence, but as a breathtaking, intermittent reward. It was a prize to be won for being good enough, quiet enough, or impressive enough. Years later, Sarah meets a man. He's charming, and he leans in with that same intense focus she remembers. Then he pulls away for days. Her narrative self flags this as a problem, but her survival self? It lights up in recognition. The pattern is a perfect match for her Imago. That feeling of almost but not quite having him doesn't register as a red flag. To her nervous system, it registers as love. It feels, terrifyingly, like home. The unconscious mind, as Carl Jung believed, is always striving for wholeness. In pulling us toward a person who fits our Imago, the psyche isn't trying to torment us. It's trying to heal. It's a subconscious, often tragic, attempt to return to the original scene of the wound and finally get a different outcome, to finally win the unwinnable love, to fix the past in the present. This is why that jolt of chemistry is so often not a glimpse into a blissful future, but a powerful echo from an unresolved past. So I ask you to reflect on this. Have you ever felt that intense, magnetic spark with someone only to realize, months or years later, that the emotional landscape of that relationship was eerily familiar? That is not destiny calling you forward. That is your own history calling for your attention. What if your greatest virtue, your kindness, your generosity, your willingness to sacrifice, is also the source of your greatest pain in relationships? It's a uniquely painful corner of the human experience, to give so much, yet to feel so profoundly unseen. To be the rock, the dependable one, only to realize you're standing on an empty foundation, hollowed out by your own selflessness. This isn't just about being nice. From a psychoanalytic perspective, this is a deeply ingrained relational strategy, a pattern that keeps us safe while simultaneously starving us of the very thing we want most. This is the trap of the covert contract. A contract is covert because it's hidden from the other person, and often, it's even hidden from our own conscious awareness. It's an unspoken, unwritten, and unilateral agreement that says, if I anticipate your needs, if I sacrifice my own feelings for your comfort, if I become the easiest, most agreeable version of myself, then you will, in return, provide me with the love, security, and validation I crave. You will never leave me. Each act of service, every canceled plan, every swallowed feeling, every time you say, I'm fine, when you're not, isn't simply a gift. It's a transaction. You are placing a deposit into an emotional bank account, fully expecting a withdrawal later on. Let's imagine a man we'll call Ben. Externally, he's the model partner. He supports his partner's dreams, never starts a fight, and anticipates every need. But internally, Ben is running a constant, anxious calculation. His acts of service are not born from a place of overflowing abundance, but from a place of deep-seated fear. It's a fear rooted in his inner child's core belief that his value is not inherent. It is conditional upon his utility. He learned early on that to be loved, he had to be useful. So he performs, not out of love, but out of a terror of being abandoned if he ceases to be of service. His partner, meanwhile, is completely unaware of this internal ledger. They don't see a sacrifice, they see a preference. They don't feel the weight of his unspoken expectations. They simply experience Ben as kind and agreeable. And so, resentment begins to fester in the dark. It's the inevitable byproduct of an unfulfilled covert contract. Ben feels betrayed, but he was betrayed by an expectation his partner never agreed to. He feels invisible because he made his true self, his needs, his limits, his authentic feelings, invisible first. This is the people-pleaser's paradox. In an attempt to guarantee love by becoming indispensable, you erase the very person they were meant to fall in love with. You present a servant, a function, a role. But a healthy, conscious connection is not drawn to service. It is drawn to substance. It doesn't seek a flawless reflection of its own needs. It seeks a sovereign individual, a separate soul with their own gravity, their own boundaries, and their own truth to stand beside. This deep-seated drive to create covert contracts, to please and to serve, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is a single tributary flowing into a much larger, more powerful river, the relentless, universal human search for external validation. This search begins the moment we are born. As infants, validation is not a psychological luxury. It is a biological necessity. A baby's cry is a bid for connection, and a parent's responsive smile is a powerful neurochemical signal that says, you are safe. You belong. You will survive. The great psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott spoke of the profound importance of the gleam in the mother's eye, the moment an infant first sees a positive reflection of itself. Our sense of self, at its very core, is born in the gaze of another. But in the modern world, this innate, healthy wiring has been hijacked. We now live inside a vast validation industrial complex. It's the digital economy of likes and shares, the corporate ladder of promotions and titles, the consumer culture of brands and status symbols, and the fitness industry's worship of the perfect physique. Each of these systems is expertly designed to dangle the modern equivalent of that parental gleam in our eyes, promising that with one more achievement, one more purchase, one more tap of a screen, we will finally feel that we are enough. Each promotion, each compliment gives our survival self a small, fleeting hit of dopamine. It's a momentary sensation of, I am worthy. I am seen. But it is, as the saying goes, like drinking salt water to quench a profound thirst. The relief is immediate but deceptive, and the underlying dehydration, the internal feeling of not enoughness, only grows stronger. You need a bigger drink next time to get the same fleeting relief. This is the very engine of the hedonic treadmill, and it's the core of what we call neediness in our relationships. Neediness is not a character flaw. It is the symptom of an empty well within. It is the desperate, often unconscious, attempt to outsource the job of self-worth to another person. We turn our partner into the sole provider of our water, placing an impossible, crushing burden on them to fill an emptiness that was never theirs to begin with. We ask them to carry the responsibility for our own self-esteem and then feel betrayed when they inevitably falter under that weight. The tragedy of the empty well is that nothing external can ever truly fill it. No amount of praise, no number of followers, and not even the most devoted partner can pour enough validation into a psyche that does not yet believe in its own inherent worth. And so we arrive at the precipice of the most important question of all. If the outside world cannot fill this void, then what can? How do we finally put down the cup of salt water and begin the quiet, revolutionary work of digging our own well? Intersection of these powerful, invisible forces. We are guided by the ghost of an attraction blueprint we never knew we had. We are exhausted from performing the labors of a covert contract that was never signed. And we are dehydrated from drinking the salt water of external validation from a well that will never quench our thirst. It can feel like a psychological prison where every door you open leads back to the same familiar cell of disappointment. It can feel hopeless, but it is not. The key that unlocks this prison is not hidden in another person's heart. It has been in your own pocket the entire time. The path out is not about finally finding the right person. It is about having the courage to finally meet, understand, and build the right self. The journey is not external, but internal. And no one understood this journey from unconscious compulsion to conscious freedom better than the great Swiss psychiatrist, Carl Jung. He gave us the map and the compass for this exact journey with a single, profound statement. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Let the weight of that sink in for a moment. The recurring pattern you call your fate in love, the bad luck, your type, the inevitable repeating cycle of heartbreak, is not a destiny written in the stars. It is a script written by your own unconscious mind, based on your earliest experiences of love and safety, and you have been performing it flawlessly night after night. The moment you turn on the lights and read that script for what it is, you are no longer its actor. You become its editor. This is the moment the central question of your life shifts. It ceases to be the outward-facing, desperate plea, "How can I make them love me?" And it becomes the inward-facing, courageous inquiry, "Why is my sense of safety and worth so profoundly tied to the approval of this specific person? What old story is this feeling trying to tell me? What part of my own history is asking to be seen right now?" This profound shift in perspective is the birth of what we can call internal sovereignty. It is the cultivation of a sense of self-worth that is non-negotiable. It's a quiet, unshakable core that doesn't shatter when someone leaves you on read. It's a deep well within you that doesn't run dry when a relationship ends because you are the source of the water. It's the foundational realization that you are not a half-person searching for your other half. You are a whole universe seeking to connect with another. And paradoxically, this foundation of not needing a partner is the only ground upon which a truly healthy, conscious, and interdependent love can ever be built. Our journey today began with a single, painful question. Why do our hearts sometimes seem to choose the path of heartbreak? We've journeyed inward, into the engine room of the psyche, and found our survival self, a loyal but profoundly outdated navigator, mistaking the familiar map of our old childhood wounds for the exciting spark of new love. We discovered the quiet tragedy of the covert contract, where our most generous acts can become unspoken bargains that inevitably lead to the bitterness of resentment. And we faced the vast, empty well of external validation and the ultimate futility of asking another person to fill a void that is not theirs. So, what are we to do with this profound and perhaps unsettling knowledge? The first temptation might be to declare war on these parts of ourselves, to try and silence the survival self, to shame the people-pleaser, to build impenetrable walls around our hearts. But this would only deepen the internal conflict, creating more fragmentation, not less. The true path forward, the one advocated by generations of depth psychologists from Jung onwards, is not one of eradication, but of integration. It is the work of turning towards these disowned parts of your psyche with curiosity and, most importantly, with compassion. It is the quiet, daily practice of becoming a kind and patient leader to your own inner world. Think of it like this. Your survival self is like a terrified passenger who has been grabbing the steering wheel of your life at every perceived threat. The goal isn't to kick this passenger out of the car. They are a part of you, and their fear comes from a place of primitive love, a desperate desire to protect you from repeating a past trauma. The work of integration is to gently place your own steady hands on the wheel, look over at that terrified part of you, and say with calm authority, "Thank you. I see you. I feel your fear, and I know you are trying to help. But I am driving now, and I will keep us safe." This is the slow, courageous work of a lifetime. It is learning to listen to the screams of your history until they become whispers, and then learning, with patience, what those whispers are trying to tell you about what you truly need. So, I will leave you with the question that can begin this very integration. A question to take with you into the quiet moments of your day, into your journal, and into your reflections on relationships past and present. What familiar feeling, be it anxiety, longing, chaos, or the quiet ache of being needed, have you, until now, been mistaking for love? That final question is not a small one. It's the kind of inquiry that can echo and unfold over days, weeks, and even years. And this work of self-discovery is often done in solitude, in the quiet, sometimes lonely, chambers of our own minds. But healing and understanding also happen in community. The moments we experience alone gain new power and clarity when they are witnessed and shared in a space of mutual respect. Our personal stories, we often find, are deeply universal. So, if this conversation resonated with you today, if it sparked a moment of recognition or offered a new lens through which to view your own story, letting us know with a like is more than just a click. It's a quiet signal that this kind of deep, reflective content is valuable, and it genuinely helps guide the conversations we choose to have here next. It lets us know that these descents into the psyche are worth taking together. And because psychology is always a dialogue, not a lecture, I warmly invite you to contribute to that conversation in the comments below. This space is not for performance or debate, but for shared reflection. If you feel comfortable, perhaps share one insight you had during this video. It doesn't need to be a grand, life-altering revelation. It could be as simple as recognizing a familiar feeling in the story of Sarah or Ben, or seeing an old relationship pattern in a new, more compassionate light. As the Jungian analyst James Hillman often said, "We don't always know what we think until we see what we say." Your reflection, however small, might be the very key that unlocks understanding for someone else reading, reminding them that they are not alone in this very human struggle. This exploration is, of course, just one step on a much longer path. If you wish to continue these journeys into the mind, to explore the landscapes of the psyche and learn the language of your own soul, then I hope you'll subscribe and join our community of fellow travelers. Remember, the goal of this work is not to be perfect, but to become whole. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to all the different parts of you. The work of understanding your own heart is the most courageous and worthwhile journey you will ever take. Thank you for sharing your time and your attention today. Take good care.